Right, we're gonna get going. Okay. Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the Public Works Committee meeting. It is Thursday, May 16. To the clerk, please take the roll call.
Council Vice President Vargas,
Present.
Councilwoman Horian,
Present.
Councilman Ferry,
Present.
Councilwoman Renzulli,
Present.
Councilman Donegan,
Present.
Councilman Campiano,
Present.
Councilman Wall,
Here.
Council President Marino.
Present.
Thank you. On to the next order of business, approval of the minutes. Approval of minutes of the April 11, 2024 regular meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve. Second.
Hearing none, to the clerk, please take the roll.
Council Vice President Vargas,
Yes.
Councilwoman Horian, Councilman Ferry,
Yes.
Councilwoman Renzulli,
Yes.
Councilman Donegan,
Yes.
Councilman Campiano,
Yes.
Councilman Wall,
Yes.
Council President Marino.
Yes.
Thank you. Next matter is committee business matters carried over. There are two items under Council President Marino. Council President, go right ahead.
Thank you. First was regarding the status of the citywide bridge and culvert inspections performed by Perry Corporation, including the report, its findings and plans. I don't see anyone here from the administration. And Council Vice President Vargas, do you know if anyone from the administration is going to be appearing this evening, or did they reach out and say that they would not have representation for the Public Works meeting?
No one has reached out to me. I don't know if the city solicitor is aware at all, if anyone from the administration will be coming.
Director Moretti is coming.
He's coming. Okay.
Okay.
I assume we need him for both of your items, correct?
Correct, thank you.
Okay. Okay. So what we can do is, until he arrives, can we do do we have a motion to take the docket out of order?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Then not, clerk, can you please take a roll?
Council Vice President Vargas.
Yes.
Councilwoman Horian, Councilman Ferry,
No.
Councilwoman Renzulli,
Yes.
Councilman Donegan, Councilman Campiano,
Yes.
Council President Marino.
Yes.
Councilman Wall.
Yes.
Thank you. That being said, we're going to proceed over to public comments. Is there anyone here in the chamber that would like to speak on docketed matters only? If you can please state your name and address for the record, ma'am.
My name is Susan Blake. I live at 173 Grand Avenue. And I'd like to talk to you about the Budlong Pool since it's on the docket. Let's talk about stale bids. Bids were opened in early March for the pool project. The lowest bid was close to $400,000 over what we have to spend on the pool. That was the lowest bid. And we're beyond the 60-day point on the opening of the bids. So I would like to suggest, if someone from the administration was actually here, I would suggest fresh bids since prices change. Any revision to the design specs on the open bid to lower the cost constitutes changes in the actual bid and should be rebid in the vein of being transparent. If you change the bid specs to make it affordable, you've changed the bid. And everybody should have an opportunity to quote on the new specs. And how is it that a request on 32124 from the Rhode Island Historical Preservation and Heritage Commission, which I'll call RIHPC, PHC, specifically requesting a cost breakdown from the city on two critical matters, and they are still unanswered. The first one was they wanted a cost breakdown on the Federal Hill Group's proposed cost to update and fix the pool for $2.5 to $2.8 million. That was in February of 2022. The other thing they wanted was a cost breakdown from Weston and Sampson on the proposed cost to replace the pool for $9 million, 19 months later. Those breakdowns have not been provided nor made available to the public, even under a specific public records request for them. Nothing. So how is it on May 8th then that a letter from RIHPHC says that they still haven't received the supporting documentation from the city, but that the city's claim that to fix the pool would not be, quote, economically feasible or prudent is believable. They accept unsubstantiated claims as fact. Why is that? Why is that? The same letter also notes that Weston and Sampson report on the pool from August 2023 did not include water pressure testing on the pool or its filtration system. Hello? It goes on to say that the same report was based on a visual inspection. That same report said that there were no depth markers when in fact there are two sets clearly visible right through the fence. That's a red flag. The report isn't worth the paper that it's written on, in my opinion. It's substantially based on hearsay from the Federal Hill Group study. It's a copy and paste job. A hose by the pool does not equal a leak. And a lie about a hose by the pool does not equal a leak either. Mark Sicoscio, the architect whom the city awarded a $350,000 design job on this tiny pool, had the audacity to stand before this council last fall and proclaim that the new tiny pool would be the envy of every city. Wow, those are his words. Is that the goal? Feeding egos with envy? Is that the pool's real reason why the mayor has the pedal to the metal? We can all see that the pool holds precipitation year after year without any problem. But we're supposed to believe that it only leaks chlorinated water. Come on. That's ridiculous. Ask the difficult questions with your committee members. And always question authority, because if you just let it go, then you're complicit. And when all the lies are sorted out, I would want to be on the side of truth, wouldn't you? I wouldn't want to be bullied just to go along. There will be negative fallout and collateral consequences. I guarantee you that. Stories, lies, ego boosts, whatever you want to call it. It's just not the truth. Okay, so can we just please normalize telling the truth? Please. Quoting former longtime city solicitor, Mr. Evan Kirschenbaum from last August council meeting, he said, people elect you not to sit here and listen. They elected you to sit here and do. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Again, is there anybody here to speak on docketed matters only in the chambers? Okay. That being said, Tom, is there anyone online?
We'll give them a moment and maybe a reminder to use the raise hand function.
And that's what, *7, Tom? Is that what it is?
Or
If you're-
*9 if on
Star
a
nine.
phone.
Right, *9 for those that are with us via Zoom to speak on any docketed matters only. If I don't see none, Tom, you don't see none.
I see no public
We'll
comment. No.
close public comments. Thank you. The administration is here with us now, so what I would like to do is go back over into the committee business matter carried over. Council President Marino, you have the table on those two items.
Thank you, Vice President Vargas. First up is the discussion regarding the status of the citywide bridge and culvert inspections performed by Perry Corporation, including the report, its finding and plans. And now that Director Moretti has joined us, if through the chair, he could update us, that would be great.
The PAR group that was contracted to do all the bridge and culverts inspections have completed their field work. They will be preparing a report that summarizes, I'll say, the priorities, the work that they would recommend being completed along with the priorities and estimated costs. That exercise will take them probably into a target. They're not held to it, but probably in the early July timeframe that we would expect to see a report. But certainly we want it to be accurate. The most critical thing to make mention, though, is obviously there was a culvert, as we all know, on Hillside Farms that required, we'll say, immediate attention. It could pose a danger. That has been, the structural deficiencies have received temporary repairs to last probably at the years, we're not talking months, we're talking in the short-term years, maybe 2 or 3 years. So the bridge is, the culvert there is structurally sound. The preview to the report, which again, we haven't seen, but a discussion with Public Works that they had with the contractor indicated no other substantial dangers or concerns that needed immediate attention. So I don't know the exact content of what they're going to be presenting. But it's rest assured they would have reported anything that required immediate attention. And other than that, that's probably good news overall. But again, the mayor was charging them to develop a plan that'd be financially affordable to the city to address matters over time versus having surprises. And as it turned out, coincidentally, and as we all know, that this exercise was not done as a reaction to the I-195 bridge. This was independent of that. It was pure coincidence of the timing. So, so we should be in. We'll have an answer, a written report, probably a targeting of the timeframe that I mentioned in the early summer. Could be earlier, but we're not holding their feet to the fire with that. They'll just let them do the due course, due diligence, because it does take time. But you want to come up with reasonable cost estimates. It takes time to do that. And so we'd rather have a report that's thorough and then fast in that sense.
Council President.
Thank you. Director Murray, last time when this issue came up, you had indicated that you thought that the report would be done by May. Is there a particular reason why that has changed? That's a big jump from the report being expected in May, then now being early July. Did something change?
Nothing's changed. Again, we're not even guaranteeing early July. It's possible June. It might be a matter of 3 or 4 weeks difference from the estimate, perhaps in May. So if you want to hold something to a matter of weeks, there's nothing wrong has happened, and just the ordinary course. And again, it may be ready earlier, but we don't have a guarantee nor a contract with a specific deadline. So no need for alarm that the results should be kind of quite interesting. I don't know. We haven't been briefed. We don't want to waste their time and occupy time and money to spend the time, dealing with the administration. Public Works has it. The most critical thing was wondering if there's anything that we need to do immediately in this budget period for the rest of this year. So we'll all find out at pretty much the same time.
Okay, so
once that report's prepared.
Okay, so just with respect to the question I asked, from what I understand, nothing has changed from the last time that you reported to us when you expected it to be in May from that time for you now to believe that it will be sometime in early July.
Yes.
Okay. And the extent of the report, I'm not sure how it was, what the expectations were. This report that Perry was to do with respect to this particular item, was this something that was put out to bid and that's how they received the obligation to complete this, or was this a specific request to them?
I don't have the answer to that. I didn't know what I know the bidding process would be coming up. Rather than falling short on my speculation, which I believe that they were pre-approved engineering firm that was pre-approved. I believe that to be the case, but I don't recall it going out to a bidding process.
Okay, so if you could maybe just let me know if it actually went out to bid with their competing firms, or if this was just a selection and how it was that it came to be that it was selected. And then the other question I have is with respect to the report, what were the expectations for the components to that report? Because I know I'm in the dark. This is the first I'm hearing about the expectation that part of that report is going to include, as you've revealed tonight, a financial plan was your word, and cost estimates. My assumption from what I had heard in the news about this being conducted and what you've communicated previously in public sessions to us was just that they were doing an overall assessment throughout the city to determine basically the safety, the need for repair relative to the culverts and the bridges in the city, but not a component that they would actually be doing a financial plan and cost estimates. So can you enlighten me on that?
I believe I did mention that before, developing the cost and the priorities so we could work it into a long-term financial plan. I believe I did mention that previously. What I should do, probably, I'll be happy to send to all 9 council peoples. I'll get a copy of the contract, send along. You can read it for yourselves. Any details you need to see about it, I'd be happy to provide that. I'll get that off to you all.
Are they going to be conducting any work that's necessary relative to these repairs, or will those specific itemized areas of repair be put out to bid so that competing firms can compete for that work and we can get the lowest
Yeah.
price for the city?
I don't know if they're contracting. I couldn't tell you that. I don't know if they're a contracting firm or an engineer design firm. I think it's the latter. So I can't answer that question, but if they are a qualified company and it so happens to be that they can do the work, and so happens to be that they comply with that process, they should be considered and not precluded. But I'm not quite sure that they're a construction and an engineering company at the same, in one.
And as for their field work that they've done, you've indicated that's been completed. In terms of any work that has already been commenced for repairs, who has performed that work? Has it been Perry, or have we done it in-house, or did we put it out to bid?
Yeah, it was done in-house. In fact, I think I sent out an email to the group, but yeah, the highway department performed the repairs. An admirable job, saving us probably a good amount of money in the process.
Okay.
Kudos to those workers and for
Yeah.
Superintendent Corso.
Yep, it's always great when our own workforce can complete that work. The other question I had was the actual list of bridges and culverts that were inspected. Since they completed the work, I know as a council, we're still in the dark as to specifically which bridges and culverts were inspected. I know you're saying you haven't received a formal report, but I guess my question is twofold. One, you have a list of those bridges and culverts that you asked them to inspect, correct?
I know that DPW has it. I believe it was shared. I think Director Matus, elaborated about that. Certainly, that would be have that list. I don't know them off the top of my head.
Okay.
There are certain things we do delegate to the professionals.
All right. And while there hasn't, you're stating this evening, there has not been any formal report that's been compiled by Perry. Have they provided to the city any other preview written report or assessment relative to the need for repairs based on their field inspections?
I'm not aware of any.
Who would be aware of any if those were provided? Would they be sent to you, or would they be sent to someone else within the city?
It would be a DPW.
Okay. All right. Do you, when were they reached out to commence this? Since I know you're saying they completed, but when did they begin? Do you know?
Not so sure this is going. I'm getting. Yeah, it's not on the agenda, on the docket, and I'm not prepared to answer the question, so I can't expand upon something that wasn't requested.
Okay.
'cause
well,
with
so-
not having the opportunity to prepare, that's why, I can't provide it.
All right, just for all clarity, again, it says discussion regarding the status of the citywide bridge and culvert inspections performed by Perry Corporation, including the report, its findings and plans. So,
But you're
if-
getting into,
I can,
procurement, it's beyond findings and plans.
when they
this-
started their field inspection, you don't know that offhand?
No.
Okay, and you
I
weren't
don't
prepared for that?
recall,
Okay,
possibly March, but certainly I would be criticized if I'm incorrect, so I don't want to say that.
I am all set on that topic unless other council members have any discussion.
Thank you. Councilman Ferry.
Yes, through the chair, Director, do you have, by any chance, know if our hazard mitigation plan is updated to a current status?
Is this on the docket? Where is it on the?
I'm
docket?
just wondering if you would happen to know that. I don't see the department, the acting Public Works Director here tonight. I mean, based on the information that's on the agenda tonight, I thought maybe the Public Works
So
Director
is this
would be
part of
here.
the hazard mitigation plan or the? I'm confused as to the scope of the hazard mitigation plan. If you tell us what you want,
We have
be
to
happy
update it. We have
prepare
to-
For you.
Just asking you a question.
No, I don't
To
know.
update our hazard
Direct-
mitigation plan
Director,
every
you
year.
want-
I'm just
Go ahead.
curious, do we know whether or not it's current?
I will inquire. I can inquire, but I don't know why you're asking this. I'm not prepared. I don't have the information. If you'd like to
Just say you don't know.
we'll
That's
send you an
okay.
email. I
Okay,
did say
wait,
that.
give me 1 second. Director, if you don't mind, there is a question. Do you mind just providing that information via an email through the clerk in terms of the hazard?
I
mitigation?
said that. I already said that. Yes.
Thank you.
That's
Councilman, are
all
you
I
okay
have.
with
Thank you
that?
very much.
Okay, thank you. Any other counselors on this discussion before we move on to the second Councilwoman Hirosian? Absolutely, Director. There's another question from a council.
Chrissy, could you speak into the microphone, please? Can't hear you.
Pear Corporation.
There. Again, I don't have on here been the procurement process. I could tell you though, that engineers fall under a special category that if they're pre-qualified, therefore, when something comes up, in this case, an emergency, we can call upon that list. It was from that list that Parry was selected.
Do we know if they're,
I believe they're Pawtucket, I believe they're Rhode Island. What is the relevance? They're a qualified company that did a great job, and the city of Cranston did a terrific job for the folks who live in Hillside Farms to get that road up and running very quickly.
Thank you. Council President, would you like to continue to have this topic on next month's ordinance agenda?
Please, thank you.
Okay, to the clerk, if you don't mind just adding this as matters carried over. Council President Marino, you have the second topic as well. Go for it.
Yep, the flooding events from September to current throughout the city, status of FEMA, state and other assistance, remediation and mitigation efforts. This has previously been stated as a continuing subject matter that we're continuing for the Public Works meetings, given the recent increase in flooding events throughout the city and giving residents an opportunity to be heard if they so choose. It's also an opportunity for council members, if there's specific questions or information from the administration that they wish to provide with respect to any developments along these lines. So I didn't hear anyone from the public comment this evening. I will say there was mention by Councilman Ferry relative to hazard mitigation plan, which falls under FEMA requires that of the city. As far as I know, although I would defer to the administration and to check with planning, planning is the one that takes the initiative relative to the hazard mitigation plan for the city. And my understanding is that we are in compliance, that one did enter, I don't remember if it's every 5 years or every 10 years, that we meet the requirements to update it, but you can follow up if you want with Director Pizzula, but I understand that that we are in compliance. Does the administration, through the chair, Director Moretti, if you have any updates you'd wish to provide relative to flooding assistance, FEMA, mitigation efforts or remediation?
As we all know, the city is not responsible nor coordinate the responsibilities of the various state and federal agencies. However, as you know, the mayor sponsored a public forum where the various public agencies came forward that could offer assistance to the flooding victims of back in, I believe the meeting may have been in the February timeframe. Since then, there is approximately 400 residents who has taken advantage of aid or assistance through FEMA or SBA, and to upwards of claims of $1.6 million. And the SBA and FEMA applications from flooding events will close on May 20th. So in a very short period of time. They had an office in the Niceville Manor, the Cranston Public Library, for a period of time. So a good number of people had taken advantage of the assistance offered by particularly those two agencies. And those are the ones we've had the most contact with. There could have been other agencies that they don't necessarily contact the administration or more peripheral, but these were the agencies that offered the greatest amount of assistance to our knowledge. And so in that respect, it's glad to see that they were happy to assist, hundreds of people.
Thank you, Director Moretti. And then in terms of the remediation and mitigation efforts and state and other assistance, where are we along the lines of the municipal resiliency program and making any efforts along those lines for mitigation and remediation going forward?
We have throughout the budget process, as you know, there are some capital projects that we are planning. These flooding issues have been pervasive for decades. Certainly, I think we're all agreeing the weather has changed lately and the flooding events are frequent, as we just had a 3-inch storm, which maybe we'd have that once every 5 years. We had that just in the last 24 hours. So with that, there's some long-term planning that's happening. There are there's flooding in many locations. Certainly where we have the Pocasset River, we have the Patuxent River here. Some of the efforts we are planning for the water, addressing watershed issues, applying for grants along with what we have in capital. Director Batus enumerated some the last time. We're working with the federal government or in contact with the federal government. They're doing the work, but we're advising in their efforts to take residences along initially be along the Pocasset River. And they should be up and running with that program in the next, they said about a year ago, they said they'd be up and running about 9 months ago. That wasn't the case, didn't happen. They're still seeking final approvals. But those efforts, we're told this time that they begin that efforts to afford people the opportunity that their properties could be taken. The mayor's seeking some emergency funding in the Pocasset River. There's some blockages. We witnessed 3 areas of the Pocasset and near Fletcher Avenue where there's trees down that could be blocking the flow of water. And so we're asking for emergency funds to at least take out those blockage points. Those are some of the things. Obviously, this is going to be here long after us, and we've begun to plan and spend some money in that vein.
I think, so do we have a pending grant through the Municipal Resiliency Program relative to the flooding for remediation and mitigation efforts?
There is a grant application, as I believe, for where's the grant? The watershed, the Garden Street area. There's a watershed that's affected, actually beginning at City Hall, going down. So there's an application for grants and funding to begin to address that watershed.
Is-
That one I'm aware of.
Is that through the Municipal Resiliency Program, or is that, I thought that was through Congressman Magaziner?
That one, I don't have all the specifics on all the plans,
Okay.
all the efforts and all the grants.
Okay, I just want to be certain that we are making every effort to take up these opportunities for funding relative to the, well-needed remediation and mitigation efforts long-term with respect to flooding, because we all know, I think we all can agree, that these are not one-time rare occurrences any longer. And that these efforts are needed. In addition, I think we all can agree that the funding is available out there. And I think we all can agree that the council grant writer is well-suited and well-suited, well-equipped, and eager to assist in that capacity. So we, I hope, can all agree that those resources administratively are being applied to make sure that we accomplish those goals for the city. If any other council members.
I
wish to
can
be
tell you
heard.
that we're adhering to that. Just so you know, is the council grant writer does not compile the information. It's kind of, they put the icing on the cake. The cake is baked at City Hall, DPW, the money is spent, the resources are spent, probably months and months, if not years, to be able to accumulate the information to present to the grant writer to submit. So I don't want you to be under the impression that the grant writer is here actually sitting in the building working with us. It's the work falls upon the administrative, in this case, oftentimes Department of Public Works. So I don't want to underestimate their resources and their usefulness also. They know the grant writer does a very nice job.
Thank you. Are there any of the counselors who would like to ask any questions or have any comment on this item? Councilwoman Hirojian. Forward.
I had a-
I missed the end of what you said.
had a constituent reach out to me about a flyer that had been left at her house. She doesn't know how long ago, maybe a year or so, about a Pecasset River urban plan. Is that what you were referring to?
That, I never heard that word, but that's probably it, because that's the federal government's first attempt between Cranston and Johnston to take those properties.
She's
Is that
on-
what it is? I know. It's going to be formidable, certainly, because given the money that's allotted, there will be much more to come. The federal agency, and it's escaping me, it's a long name, I can assure you.
Okay,
That they've been in Cranston, they've seen the damage, they've been here actually right after the floods down the Fortson Avenue area.
yes.
So they're formulating their plans, and I have to say, last year at this time, they said they'd be moving on it last summer. It didn't happen. And so I believe time had expired, I think, actually, within their approval window. They assured us that process is alive and well, and they should be receiving final approval very soon. I'm talking next month or two, so
Okay.
that they could begin to roll out this program. That's probably that property.
All right, thank you, Director.
Thank you, Councilman Wall.
This question is for Director Moretti. about a week back, and I called into the administration on this, and just a little bit of clarification. When you were discussing mitigation, you discussed when trees fall into the river and, block the river up. Something like that, when the river is dammed up, and I bring this up because I believe it's the Patuxent River that flows under Pontiac Avenue. And there's a railroad bridge there, and there's not much of a passing there, and I guess that some debris on occasion is collecting. And I'm sure you're quite familiar with that area, that around CLCF, the house is right there on Pontiac, that area has flooded a number of times. Is it the city, and who in the city, if it is, does the city take care of that, or is it a state? I mean, the river itself, who knows where this debris flows from?
Yeah, okay, regardless of, I'll say jurisdiction, but to the extent that we have the resources to be able to remove debris, we will. We actually, I remember there's pretty jammed up over there. Frankly, escapes me the end result. Has there been any action on that? Do you know? And sometimes I'll get word out and it'll be done, and sometimes it wouldn't be done.
Someone
It's a
out
matter of
there, and I
following up.
believe, not to interrupt you, someone went out there, and I believe they weren't really sure who had done it, or if the river had just receded to a point where the debris could flow. But that kind of situation, especially in that area, and I'm sure there are many others like that,
Yeah.
could create some serious flooding in that, right
Yeah.
around there.
Yeah.
And we've seen it over the last couple of months.
Yep. So to answer your question, to the extent that, that we can do something about it, we will. But obviously we don't want to endanger too many people, or if it's not of great expense, and if we have to contract, perhaps if we can afford to do so, we will. But other than that, really, it resides really elsewhere. The city don't own those rivers or are responsible. But on that particular one, I'll make sure I follow up on that. And I believe Councilman Donegan had a constituent contact him out there behind Fletcher Avenue. We can give you an update on that. That I'm feeling very optimistic about, and happy to look at this one again.
So just to follow up.
Yeah.
In the, given the number of events we've had with flooding and, the limited resources, of course, that we have, when the resources do run out, who does the constituent call to say, please unblock the river? It's flooding into my yard, my basement. You follow me?
In this example, frankly, I called, I forgot the name of the agency. I apologize. And they are apparently responding. They say they sent their request to Washington, waiting to hear back. They were optimistic that they'd be granting certain funds in certain cases, because there is some emergency money out there. So on we'll call it an emergency that we'll try to deal with them on a one-on-one basis as it becomes known. So if that situation has not been adequately addressed, we'll take a peek, and hopefully maybe we can include that if it hasn't been cleared, literally.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Any other council members before we move on? All right. Thank you, Director. Moving on to new matters before the committee. Councilman Ferry, you have, I think, 2 items under your communication. Floor is yours.
Yes. Thank you, Council Vice President. Through the chair, may I ask the director a few questions?
Absolutely.
Director Moretti, we're just curious as to what the status is on the bids for the Budlong Pool. I mean, the bids came in over 60 days ago, and we would appreciate an update.
Councilman, would you mind if one question kind of bleeds into the other? Would it be, if I go a little further, are you okay with that?
All right, I'll ask you both questions
Yeah,
then. Can we have an update on the status of the bids on the Budlong Pool?
Yeah.
And seeing that all the bids were over the allotted funds, what is the plan and how far along is this plan, should we have one? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. As you are aware, I believe you were there. I believe March 5th, BOCAP had opened the bids, and you are correct that currently funds available $750,000 for the congressional grant and $4 million having to do with the use of ARPA funds. So a total of $4.75 million, $4.75 million. has been allotted, if you will. There were 5 bids, and the lowest bid was, now this is for the, basically construction, excludes engineering, which would probably be about $350,000 as an estimate. But the construction bid was 4.76 million. The next highest bid was $4.94 million. So where we're at, and this happens a lot, and I'm sure you've heard it with the schools, both with Eden Park, with Garden City, and with Gladstone now, as you've heard the term, value engineering. And so which in this case, practically speaking, the engineering department, they're looking at ways of coming up what they refer to as deducts, or eliminations. Now, obviously elimination speaks for itself, but we try to avoid those as much as possible to be able to really cut from what we're doing. But they're first looking at deducts. And deducts kind of referring to items that can possibly be done in-house, being done alternatively than out to bid. So they're in the process of identifying value engineering, like the analogy is what they do with the schools, to develop those deducts, and if necessary, some eliminations. The target is sometime in early June to develop the list of deducts to be able to kind of have more plans that are affordable. As you know, at 4.75 million, the mayor is building the biggest possible pool for 4.75 million. As you saw, the bids are higher than that, so we have to kind of cut back, but not looking for the size of the pool. What's happened is that I think that might answer the first part of the question. So how far is this along? We're in the process of executing an MOU with the Rhode Island Historic Preservation Commission. And that was proceeding well and finding ways to memorialize the pool house. As you know, we're doing as minor renovations to the pool house as possible, preserving that max, but obviously there's, I don't think I have to speak much about the pool. It's the physical pool in the ground itself. We were well on its way, and the group, as you're very much aware, Ms. Rosenberg, as chairperson of the Cranston Forward, asserted what they refer to as consulting party status. So with that, it basically was adding another step of involvement in the process to bring that group up to speed with where we were with it, even though we all know, I'm sure from the historical perspective of the pool, under Section 106, HUD has a Section 106 having to do with historic preservation. So she asserted consulting party status, as she legally or rightfully can. So it did delay it probably about 2 months, up to 2 months, I could say that, and to satisfy the concerns of that group to participate in the process. And just last week, a letter was received from the Historical Preservation Commission for us to move forward as we pretty much originally had planned to do so. So that participation has taken place. And so that will take a little bit of time to get the MOU and agreement, the MOU in place, developing that between the city of Cranston and the Rhode Island Historical Preservation Commission. And at the same time, we're working on finishing up on the deducts. What came first, the chicken or the egg? We couldn't do the deducts unless we knew what needed to be done was agreed upon with the Historic Preservation Commission. So that's why the 2-month delay. As a result of that, certainly at this time, that was the kind of put us over the edge where I don't think we can anticipate seeing a pool this year, given that extended time frame. We hope to move along and over the next couple of months, having an MOU in place, coming up with enough value engineering to be able to award the bid.
Through the chair. So basically, the $350,000 that went to Secocia, it comes off the $4.75 million.
Yes,
So we really only have basically $4.3 million to build the pool, approximately. Let's just do simple math. I'm not going to hold anybody to a penny.
in
Okay.
general,
general, okay.
pool house, et cetera.
And you're looking for close to $500,000 in deducts.
Probably in the 350, 400, but in that range.
Okay.
Mhm.
So I have a question for you. Why weren't we looking at deducts from the beginning? Like if this is something that we're capable of doing, because we're kind of forced to do it, why wouldn't it be something that we would do anyways and save the $400,000 right from the beginning? Instead of working backwards saying, oh, now that we're in a jam here, we got to figure out a way to do it. I'm just curious, why don't we think that way
Yeah.
as a city?
Yep. So I can just give you an example or two. Would be that the intention was to move forward to have a pool built sometime for this this season. Now that, given this involvement, it's not going to happen. So we're afforded, not going to have a pool. If we have a pool ready in December or March of next year, it's not really going to matter. So that's an example where the city can be doing some work ourselves. Whereas before we're moving forward to try to have the pool ready for this summer. Or part of this.
And we're not considering putting it out to bid again to see if there's somebody out there that might build it for $4 million.
Yeah, we owe it to the bidders. We could go out to bid, but likely to be higher and not lower. It's probably in the best interest of the city to stay with the bids that we have. We had a thorough bidding process, 5 people bid. Now everyone knows what the bids are. I'm not sure how much lower people are going to be bidding at. I think the city runs an equal risk, if not a greater risk, of paying more money and not being able to get the project done.
Okay, I felt from the beginning that when you tell somebody how much money you have to spend before you put bids out, you're always going to get bids that are higher than how much money you have to spend. So let's move on to the next question, if anybody doesn't mind. All right, based on the requirements of the grant, what steps are being taken to sustain the $750,000 grant? I think there's been something that might have been published since I put this on the agenda.
Well, what I was explaining about the involvement with the Historic Commission has solely to do with the $750,000 grant. This provision of Section 106 with HUD is not applicable. So if it was just the ARPA funds, then we would not have had this delay or the process of which the involvement having to do with the Historic Preservation Commission. So the point is, as so all of that I explained in the timeframe has to do with that grant, and that's what it's about.
So we are doing everything we can to maintain the grant, to be able.
Oh, yeah,
okay.
that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Any council members who have any questions on this? Councilwoman Hiroshi.
To you. The expiration date?
The bids? I believe it's to be 2 months. I'm a bit, that's not my expertise. The bidders, the lowest bidders have still expressed an interest to stay in the game, to hold to their costs without increases and so it's felt that the best interest of the city is to stay with what we got. So what I've been told, I don't know these firms, but supposedly the lowest bidders are very reputable in terms of reputation. So they're still in the game. Certainly if they wanted to, they could withdraw. At this time, they could withdraw. That time has expired just, I believe, last week or the week before.
Okay. And the federal grant money, does that have an end date that we need to use it by?
I'm more concerned about the ARPA funds. I think ARPA funds, you have to be committed by the end of this year, 12/31/24. The grant is going to be more flexible than that. I don't have, it probably will be an end date when the contract comes forward, but I could tell you the the expiration of ARPA commitment will come first.
And I had one other constituent reach out to me and wanted to know, is there any chance of it still being a rectangular pool?
It'll cost more money. because the design is in place. Can it be done? We could probably build a smaller pool because of less money if you want a rectangular pool. But probably not the advisable thing to do at this time.
And did we get a breakdown on what it would cost to repair any of that, of the original pool?
Yeah, that goes back to the September 6th, I think, meeting of last year. To repair the pool, again, the whole project, including the pool house, to keep it that size. And it's one of two numbers, and they're varying numbers, either 9.5 million that comes to this brain or 12.5 million. But certainly was over the 4.75 that the mayor was given. So it was really double. It was at least double to repair the pool, estimated to repair the pool, than build a new one with the money that would be allotted.
Thank you, Director.
Welcome.
Councilwoman Renzulli.
Director, to that end, just because Councilwoman Horoyan just brought it up, even if we had that additional funding allotted to keep the pool the same size and they were going to fix it, not completely redo it, did they say it was only going to last for about 10 years? Is that the
Yes.
number? But
Yeah, it would have a useful life substantially less than a new pool. Yes, it would.
All right, thank you.
Any other counselors on this discussion? Okay. Thank you, Director. Actually, Director, the next item I have a question on, by the way, for those that are here today on the Ordinance Committee, we'll be starting that shortly. We're just finishing up the Public Works Committee meeting. Director Moretti, I have on here overnight parking of trailers on Broad Street. And I also added no overnight parking signage on there. I have sent the administration emails. I have not heard back in terms of the overnight trailers that are parked right in front of the cemetery, directly outside of the RIPTA charging station, across from the Dollar General. And the reason why I'm saying that as a kind of landscape, if you will, is because I really don't know what the physical address really is right on there, because it's on the street. There are trailers that are parked overnight all weekend. There are trailers that I do know that are not moving their trailers before the overnight parking ordinance, right? So it's literally there from Friday all the way until Monday morning, because I have purposely driven at all times just to get a sense whether these trailers have moved. Even during the week, we have a no overnight parking right now. But I'm getting residents who are reaching out. There's in the ordinance, a no overnight parking in place already. And I think even Councilman Ferry has even helped me in terms of even double checking if there is any signage on there. And I think we both have not seen an overnight parking placed yet, right?
The signs are supposed to say no commercial parking.
Thank you.
We passed that ordinance about 2 months ago. Or maybe it was 6 weeks ago. I'm not exactly sure.
That was fairly recent. Niantic area, that was pretty recent,
No,
I believe,
it is.
Councilwoman.
But
No, this is Broad Street we're talking about, near the Oak Lawn Cemetery.
Flint Cemetery on
Flint
there,
Cemetery.
yeah. But there's no signage
Yep.
there yet. But also, not just is there no signage, is there, they're not just Dollar General trailers. They're just trailers from so many out of state
Mhm.
that are, I don't know if they're suddenly being told that they can
Mhm.
park there, not get tagged. But it's starting to pile up, literally going all the way down Broad Street at certain times of the month.
Mhm.
I'm just wondering if the administration could reach out, start off with Dollar General maybe, because I know one of them is theirs. And then if not, is there, can we go out and see if we run the plates, send a letter? I'm just trying to figure out how is it that we can avoid these these trailers from lining up. Maybe that signage is a start before tagging them and just putting that signs
Mhm.
up and seeing what happens
Yeah.
from there.
As to the signs, apparently, because there's a lot of space between the recent ordinances, they're on order. So we're expecting delivery. I want to get, they didn't get back to me to tell me when the date, but I know they're on order, which I wouldn't think signs. We do a lot of signs in-house, but I guess there's a bunch of them that we went outside. So those should be coming soon. I assume signs aren't gonna be backordered for, too long. That's for starters.
Yeah, I'm wondering if we have any extras, when we
They would
do
do-
order,
they
a
would.
few order them in batches and.
I'll see if we can
But maybe we
accelerate
start
whatever
that
we
way
can.
first and putting the signs up.
Yeah,
That would be worth.
I'll see if we can
Sure.
accelerate something. We can also see if we can, good idea, but maybe stopping by the businesses, see if they belong, but they might not.
Yeah.
The other thing, I thought Colonel Winquist responded to you, though.
One of the emails, the colonel did respond a few months ago and they were told, I was told that they had gone by and the trailers are not there because they moved right before the 5 AM, I think, overnight ordinance. But I recently sent two other emails on this. But just to get a sense what are we doing? Only because they're not, I think I probably sent a picture too, saying
Yeah,
they're
I
still
remember.
there overnight. That one I didn't get a
I
response.
believe the Colonel, I'll check,
But
but I
he did
believe the
respond to one of them
Colonel,
a few months ago. The one recently, when I sent pictures, I'm like, this is still happening.
I'll do one of two, I'll
You
do
know.
two things. I'll check to see if the correspondence, I could swear that the Colonel recently responded.
I'll double
Maybe he
check,
didn't
I'll
get it.
double
If
check
not-
again. I
If
will
not, be
double
happy to
check my
provide it
email
again. Or even if he did, happy to follow up with police. The Colonel's on vacation for a little while, but soon
Good for him.
I can contact police
Yeah.
about this matter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Happy to work.
That would be great. Again, we can start off with the signage. I think that would also be a great start. in The communication to the Family Dollar. So, okay, great. Great. No further discussion from any of the counselors. Great.
Motion
that
to
is
adjourn.
please. Thank you.
Second.
Discussion, right? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Right, ayes have it. Meeting adjourned. We'll start the ordinance committee in just 5 minutes. Good evening. Welcome to the Ordinance Committee meeting. It is Thursday, May 16th. To the clerk, can you? Thank you. To the clerk, can you please take a roll call?
Council Vice President Vargas.
Present.
Councilman Wall.
Here.
Councilman Ferry.
Here.
Councilwoman Mazzulli.
Present.
Councilwoman Haroyan.
Present.
Councilman Donegan. Councilman Campiano.
Present.
Council President Marino.
Present.
Thank you. On to the next order of business, approval of minutes, approval of the minutes of the April 11, 2024 regular meeting. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve?
Any discussion? Hearing none. To the clerk, please take the roll.
Council Vice President Vargas.
Yes.
Councilman Wall.
Yes.
Councilman Ferry.
Yes.
Councilwoman Mazzulli.
Yes.
Councilwoman Haroyan.
Yes.
Councilman Donegan.
Yes.
Councilman Campiano.
Yes.
Council President Marino.
Yes.
Thank you. There's no committee business matters carried over. We'll move forward with public hearing and public comment. If there's anyone here in the chamber who's going to be coming up and providing any public comment on docketed matters only, I ask you to come forward, say your name and address, and limit it to 2 minutes. Good evening. Nope, go for it. No. Can you make sure the microphone is on green, the little green light is on?
It is on now. Is that better?
That is.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely.
Myself and Ed Pimentel will also be speaking in regards to this matter this evening. So again, my name is Elizabeth Noonan, Noonam. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Adler, Pollock and Sheehan in Providence, and I represent John Casale in regards to the zoning petition change. Some of you may be familiar with this, as it is not new to this council generally. What we're seeking to essentially do is change the zoning from A80 on property on Sage Drive in Cranston to A20. And our argument for that is that it is consistent with the comprehensive plan that is in place today. What I'd like to talk about first is sort of the litigation that was pending briefly, and then the status of the comp law, and then the comp plan itself, and Mr. Pimentel will assist in that area. In 2021, this council denied the zone change, and I filed a petition in Superior Court seeking some relief from that decision. Basically, and the thrust of our argument was that your comprehensive plan, which a prior iteration of this council adopted in 2010, called for it to be zoned A20, and that's what it should be. There's multiple claims within there. One is what's called a declaratory judgment, saying that we do have those rights for this to become A20. So that lawsuit was filed through some discussions with your solicitors. We did enter into a consent order, which has led us to be here. Paragraph 1 of that consent order does say that the prior denial, let me get the exact language for you. The prior denial of plaintiff's petition to rezone his property located at Plat 35, Lot 2, from A80 to A20 is inconsistent with the comprehensive plan, which expressly calls for the property to be rezoned to A20 upon the request of the landowner. So that's where we start with on that. So as part of that order, we refiled this petition that's before you today, and we appeared before the Planning Commission, I think 2 weeks ago, on that, where they gave I forget the terms, but essentially a neutral endorsement with a carve out for some zoning issues they thought were considered. What I want to talk about, and I'll address the letter from the objectors who are now represented by counsel, and I'm actually grateful for that. It's kind of a rocky hearing in front of the planning with some yelling from the crowd, so hopefully this will be a little more contained with counsel representing the objectors. But the comp plan is still in place. There is a requirement that when your comp plan is adopted and calls for different zoning, within 18 months, the town council or city council here needs to change their zoning to comply with that land use map. It's never been done for this piece of property. You're not alone. A lot of municipalities have not done it despite that requirement of 18 months. In fact, there's a case cited in the objector's letter that was sent to you this morning, PJC Realty versus Barry in the city of Pawtucket. I was the lawyer on that case. I brought a case where we had the comp plan, a question about consistency with the comp plan. And while the Supreme Court didn't like some of the ways I requested my relief, I can tell you there was a Brooks Pharmacy built on that property after the zone change occurred. So my point on this is that your comp plan still remains in effect from 2010. At that time in 2010, the law was slightly different than it was in regards to the state law and to what you needed to do. But certainly at that time, the state law required that the comp plan, it states, the comp plan is a statement that is designed to provide a basis for rational decision-making regarding the long-term physical development of the municipality. Goes on later to talk about the land use element, designating, certain areas as residential, commercial, industrial. And one of the things it talks about is that the comp plan should also provide an inventory of existing and forecasted needs for facilities and services used by the public, including but not limited to educational facilities, which became an issue at the Planning Commission hearing. Goes on public safety, water, all those issues. So and Mr. Pimentel can probably give you a better education on the comp plan, but it is a long range document. So in this case, there have been some new laws implemented within the last few months, part of the overhaul of all this legislation. And in one of them, it says, strike that, the objector's attorney says the comp plan doesn't exist anymore. It's over. That's just not true. There are limitations on how the comp plan can be used. For example, if it is not updated as required by law, which is where yours is now, you're not alone, but that's where it is, the city can't use the comp plan as a basis for denial. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It continues to exist. So from our position, the A20 designation is what's been called out for this property since 2010. We've brought litigation for it as an attempt to sort of see if we can resolve that litigation and move forward. We're resubmitting the application to you. And one thing to note on what the standard is on this, there's a lot of things, and you as council members, you're the legislative body of the city, I understand that. But if you were to grant this and the objectors decided to appeal, there's really only two issues that would be raised on that appeal by statute in the existing statute, which is one, is it consistent with the comp plan? And not only do you have Mr. Pimentel telling you, but we have a court order that says that now. And the second point is whether or not it is a taking of the property. So those are the only two issues on appeal. So I urge you to consider that while you're making your decision, because we're in a pretty narrow alley, despite what you may hear from others. Just cover my points before I turn this over to Ed. There's a question of whether or not it's not in the interest of the public that was raised by the objectors. Again, when the comp plan was passed in 2010, it was a long-term, long-range document, and I think much of that still holds true versus if you spot select one particular issue. Generally, what we're asking for is a piece of land. What's 4 single-family homes are allowed, and we're asking to go to 8. That zone change would actually allow us to do more, but the property is somewhat constrained by the site configuration and other things. So that's the real effective change for what has been submitted. There was a procedural point raised in the objector's letter that we should have gotten planning approval for the plan in the order of sequence of things. It's my understanding that planning, because they have seen this plan a number of times, just went to the advisory opinion first. And then, they know what the plan is and that it hasn't really changed. And we fully expect, if it's passed, that we will of course go back to the planning board for that. So I think at this point, what I'd like is for Mr. Pimentel to discuss the consistency. He has testified on this issue before, spoke to the council, and if you could just give a rundown to this council.
Good evening. For the record, Edward Pimentel, that's P as in Paul, Imentel. I too reside in the city of Cranston. My report is basically the same as last time, except for the fact that there's been a litany of new regulatory amendments by the Rhode Island General Law. Most of them went into effect January 1st of this year. The one that will be more applicable went into effect March 1st of this year. And what that does to kind of also impose upon how I feel that it's consistent is that now going forward, all land use decisions must be based on the future land use map. So what we're asking here is to, in fact, develop this property in accordance with the future land use map, and as of March 1st, that actually now is emphasized in Rhode Island general law. Number one, yes, zoning is supposed to be consistent with it. There was some quirks in the Rhode Island general law prior to that as to what trumped what, and that's why the Rhode Island, the General Assembly made sure that very clear. Secondly, when in fact this comp plan was adopted, because the argument has always been that this comp plan is dated, deemed invalid, too old, but the reality is when this comp plan was initially adopted, within 18 months, it was mandatory. It was the regulatory requirement of this council, not this particular council, but a prior council, to realize consistency and compliance with the Rhode Island general law. So a prior council within 18 months should have already rezoned this property to the A20 designation. It happens that many municipalities fail to do that. One obvious reason for that is there's such a litany of zone changes that come out of a comp plan that the resources that would take to meet all those demands would be very difficult. So it's very typical for a council to leave it to an individual property owner to pursue the zone change pursuant to a development action and then accordingly rezone it. That's what we've tried several attempts in the past. Your future land use map speaks to density, and that would encompass a few different zoning designations. But the council, even further to emphasize the specific appropriate zoning for this, then made a list on a parcel by parcel basis and said that the A20 is the correct zoning designation for this property. So what I did was to show that we're not trying to maximize usage of property either. There are 400 and something lots in the Alpine Estates. They're all half-acre zoning. The current classification of this property, pursuant to Rhode Island general law, if you were to actually physically apply that, would be 1 unit at the low range to 3.63 units at the high range per acre of buildable land. So you're looking at a range of 9.67 up to 2030 units if the land was all deemed suitable for development. But the reality is a greater number than what's the 4 units that's under the current zoning. The A20 designation would highly increase that number. What we're asking to do is put 8 house lots there at a density of 1.25 acre per house lot. You know, much, much less dense than the 400 something lots that exist in Alpine Estates, although your comp plan gives us the same density rights as was in Alpine Estates. So we're not trying to maximize usage of this property. I went in, took explicit quotes out of the comp plan to also show textual consistency, but ultimately the way a comp plan is constructed, because I know there was anecdotal information thrown out at the Planning Commission about education and schools being over capacity and so forth. I think over the last couple of days, I looked at all the state guide plans. There are literally voluminous documents for each element and how you draft these elements. The amount of data that has to be collected, the amount of scrutiny that has to be collected, then you have to address concerns and how do you achieve those in addressing those concerns. That's why amending a comp plan is a lengthy process. It's an arduous process. It involves a lot of public hearings at both the advisory stage before the Planning Commission and eventually at the council level. So throwing an anecdotal point out and saying, because of this, we should not make the rezone is flying in the face of what it takes to amend a comp plan. This comp plan was properly amended in 2010, and then there were some changes dated 2012. And all that data collection, all that analysis was done, and it culminated in a conclusion that this property should be A20 zoning in accordance with the current land use classification of single-family residential 3.63 to 1 unit per acre. That's the classification. So having said that, it is absolutely my opinion that the zone change should have been done then, it should be done now, and that will realize consistency with your comp plan.
Just a quick question, Mr. Pimentel, if I may.
Yes.
I know it's your opinion that the proposed zone change is consistent with the comp plan. Are you familiar with the city planner's opinion on that?
Yes, yes. The opinion out of the planning department was consistent with my own opinion on the record that the A20 is the appropriate zoning designation for the classification detailed in the future land use map.
And in fact, not only was it consistent, but the zone change is specifically recommended by the comp plan, correct?
It's specifically recommended by the comp plan, and in fact, we've now had 4 different recommendations coming from the CPC, the City Planning Commission, at least during my involvement in this property. 2 also was a vote of consistency, and since then, 2 of abstention, or of no vote.
Thank you. That's all that I have to present at this time. I think, you know, what I want to say to the council members is I think this is a reasonable proposal for this property. There are more intensive things that could be used, and I understand change is difficult. This is at the end of a cul-de-sac. I get that. But to put in 8 lots, which is consistent with the half-acre zoning throughout Alpine Estates, is consistent with not only your comp plan, but really with the neighborhood analysis. I'm not saying this as a threat by any means, but just analyzing this, there are much more intensive uses that could go there. And I think knowing that it's going to be stabilized as a single-family residential would be a benefit to the whole community. And I'm available for any questions, as is Mr. Pimentel.
Thank you. We are in docketed items under public, sorry, on public comment right now. So is there anyone else on the chamber who would like to come up and speak? Thank you. Good evening, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the committee, my name is Peter Squires. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Arcillo, Tights and Rich. I'm here on behalf of my clients, a group of residents of Cranston and owners within Alpine Estates, which are in the immediate vicinity of the property that's to be rezoned. So what I'd like to present to you, and I'll try to be respectful of your time, is that there's been some argument put before you tonight by legal counsel to suggest that you're under a legal requirement to pass this zoning ordinance. What I'd like to convince you of is that you are under no such legal obligation. And then after I make that argument, I'll leave it up to my clients and the residents of the neighborhood to come up and tell you why it is not a good idea to pass this ordinance. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, you make your decisions to pass ordinances based on what you believe is in the interest of the public, in the interest of the community, in the interest of your constituents. And that's all I'd ask you to do tonight. Now, as the petitioner alluded, this did come before you previously in 2021, and you did make a decision on it then, and a majority of this committee and the council at the time decided that this ordinance was not in the interest of the public. So the question that comes up is, well, what's changed? And really, not much. The impacts on the neighbors would be the same. And really, the only difference that there is between now and when this came before you previously in 2021 is that in the interim, the petitioner has sued the city. And they've sued the city trying to get a court to force the city, try to get a court to enter an order forcing you to pass this ordinance, even though a majority of the council decided in 2021 that this wasn't the right ordinance to pass. Now, they haven't been successful on that lawsuit, nor could they be, because there have been multiple cases where the court has said, we cannot order a legislative body to enact an ordinance. My sister referenced one of those cases, which we've cited in our letter, the PJC Realty case versus Pawtucket. And, you know, it may be that ultimately a pharmacy was built in that location, but if it was because the city council of Pawtucket decided that it was right for that area. The court said, we will not order the city council to pass any ordinance. They would not step in because that is up to the legislative body who's answerable to their constituents. That was based on a case that was previous to that called Consolidated Realty versus the town of North Providence. And the court in that case used even stronger language. And this isn't my language, this is what the court said. They indicated that havoc would follow. That's the language they used if a litigant could sue a legislative body to force that body to pass the legislation that they wanted to get passed. And the reason that they use such strong language with regard to those type of lawsuits is because it is fundamentally at odds with our structure of government. A democratically elected legislative body, as you are, should make decisions based on what they feel is in the interest of their constituents. Now, my sister, opposing counsel, the petitioner's counsel, very highly competent counsel, and, you know, very experienced in this area of the law. But ultimately, what came out of that lawsuit is a consent order, which is an agreement. And what did that agreement say? All it said was that the city would take a petition. If they file it, they would hear the petition and then vote on it up or down. And that's what you do in the ordinary course. And then the end of the order says, once you act on it, and it doesn't specify whether you vote up or down, as long as you act on it, the case would be dismissed. Respectfully, knowing that this council is very capable, if there was any path forward where they could have gotten a court to force you to pass this ordinance, I would submit that they would have done it. But the reason that they've entered this agreement, which basically just gives them what they'd be entitled to in any event, which is a chance to be heard, the reason they did that is because I know the cases, she knows the cases. It's just not, there is no legal obligation for you to pass this ordinance. Finally, there was reference to state law and the legislative package that was passed by the General Assembly. And, you know, there is statutes, state statutes that say the zoning ordinance should be consistent with the comprehensive plan. And there is a provision in the statute that says municipalities should do that within an 18-month period. But that wasn't part of the new legislative package. That went way back. And there was a case on that from 2011 called West v. McDonald, where the Supreme Court said, even though that's what the statute says, we're going to say that that is not a mandatory statute. And why do they reach that decision? It's because in passing legislation, which this is, the legislative body needs to have discretion to act in the interest of their constituents. So the statutes they cite, the lawsuit they've brought, none of that requires you to pass this ordinance. And then finally, the last legal point we'd make is that there is a process in state law if they're seeking an ordinance amendment to allow a development, and that's in Chapter 25, I'm sorry, Title 25, Chapter 23, Section 61. And what that says is, if you need to get approval from the Planning Commission, as well as an ordinance amendment, what you should do first is go to the Planning Commission for your approval. If the Planning Commission gives you the approval, then you come to the council and you ask for the zone change. So in this case, that would mean if they want to get a subdivision from the Planning Commission, they should go there first, ask for a subdivision, and if the Planning Commission agrees that they should have a subdivision there, and it requires a zone change, then they come to the council and ask for the zone change. The reason that that process is in place is, I think tonight gives a pretty good example of it. The applicant said to you, well, we could get more than 8, but we only plan to get 8. Well, the way that you are certain of that is if they go to the Planning Commission first, they get their approval for a subdivision, and it only has 8 lots. If you put the cart before the horse, so to speak, well, you know, now that way to control what the development is going to be, that's gone. So I said I'd be respectful of your time, and I will. I just wanted to emphasize the point that you are not under a legal obligation to enact this ordinance. You decided in 2021, or at least a majority of you decided in 2021, that this didn't serve your constituents. I'd ask you to stand by that decision, and there's many people in the gallery that would ask you to do that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Please share your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Janice Cataldo. I live on Sage Drive in Cranston. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm against the zoning change for the following facts. The Department of Head determined that to effectively serve students in the Orchard Farms school, they would have to have a school capacity of 360 children. When we were here testifying 3 years ago, that number was 460, and today it's still at 460. The estimate by the Department of Ed 20 years ago to replace either Orchard Farms or Hope Highlands was 24 million. That number is 5 times that today. Think of all the little pools you could build with that kind of money. I want to talk about the tax base. We can prove that every home sold in this area, Caraway, Sage, Time, was by families who have 2 children. So to educate those children, it's going to cost, on average, $38,000 a year to educate those families annually. And the school is almost 60% of this city's budget. The other issue was infrastructure, traffic, water, and sewer. Any rezoning to add more homes and removing trees will not only impact the water table, but traffic as well. Alpine buffers the Situate Reservoir, and there's been evidence to say that a 2-acre zoning is best for water quality and to protect the water. We have also daily data showing that there are 73,000 vehicles going by Alpine on a daily basis, more than any other spot in Cranston other than highway entrances. 14 years ago, the comprehensive plan language continually outlined concerns about Western Cranston development and rapid growth, but that growth has continued. Here's what planning said, and I will quote, "Preservation of existing undeveloped land, capacity and traffic are Western Cranston's largest concern due to high growth trend." That was 14 years ago. Also, Mr. Pizzullo stated, we need to rewrite the comprehensive plan rather than update the old comprehensive plan because so much is outdated and doesn't consider the rapid Western Cranston growth. In summary, here are the facts. Oh, I also wanted to counter something that Mr. Pimentel said. There's been no mid-cost review done in 14 years. It's required by state law. If we had done a mid-cost review, I don't believe this zoning change would be still in the comprehensive plan. So in summary, here are the facts. The bordering school is so overcrowded. If you move here, these 4 homes or 8 homes, you got to get bused to another school. The traffic is so bad, the city is debating putting up a traffic light. I think we've actually heard there is going to be a traffic light. Neighbors have issues with flooding, but most importantly, the negative impact on our city's budget. With all this opposition and no legal requirement to approve what Mr. Casali has requested, how in good conscience can anyone who's elected to represent the citizens of Cranston choose a developer over the citizens and the taxpayers? Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Again, just a reminder, keep our statements pretty short on this name and address for the record.
Vin McChrystal, 65 Sage Drive. Just want to do a little history because there's a few new faces here. In the last 5 years, this developer has threatened residents and taxpayers by saying he would put in a pig farm or a mosque on the property if we didn't stand down and support the zoning change. That was said to a group of neighbors in front of the property. He also, as punishment to us, made the property an eyesore by cutting trees, leaving stumps, ugly chain link fence, and a plywood billboard, which is sitting out in the weather, just rotting. Now, in the paper, I described this as a war zone. That's exactly what it looked like. And finally, I want to mention, so that no one forgets, he threatened the Ordinance Committee. Back in November of 2021, and you can look at the tape, it's on YouTube, with a livestock farm or a religious building. If you vote for this tonight, that's who you're supporting, not us. And just remember, when he purchased this in 1995, the residents had already fought against a zoning change from the prior owner, the exact same zoning change. He bought it knowing full well that we were against it. If you vote for him tonight, you're not harming him. If you vote against it, sorry, you're not harming him in any way. He bought it as an A80 and he can develop it as an 880. No one's stopping him from doing that. We're not against growth. But who you will harm if you vote for it is the taxpayers and residents who have fought for 30 years against this change. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, again, name and address for the record. Keep it short.
Mildred Morera, 25 Caraway Drive. As a resident of Alpine Estates, I am opposed to this zoning change. However, I am not opposed to the building and development under the current zoning restrictions of A80. My husband and I have lived in Alpine Estates for 36 years. Alpine has experienced significant development in its infrastructure capacity in those 36 years. Originally, the development consisted of 190 homes with streets branching off the one exit and one entrance road, Alpine Estates Drive. With development over those 36 years, the total number of homes now stands at approximately 450, still using one entrance, one exit, Alpine Estates Drive. With each home possessing a minimum of 2 cars, leaving and returning from work or school each morning and afternoon, with constant deliveries throughout the day, and other service providers traveling on Alpine Estates Drive, the one entrance, the one exit for this development, this has become a major safety concern. School buses and parents from surrounding neighborhoods dropping off and picking up children at Orchard Farms in the morning and afternoon use Alpine Estates Drive as an alternate route, a cut-through, to approach the school entrance to avoid the traffic jam in the school driveway. This poses a major concern, a safety concern for children who are walking, as there are no sidewalks and no crossing guard at this very busy intersection. As a retired teacher of Cranston Public Schools, having spent my last 23 years as a 5th grade teacher at Gladstone Elementary, I am aware of the burden placed upon the teacher in an overcrowded classroom and the negative impact that an overcrowded classroom has on teaching and learning. Orchard Farms is currently over capacity as well as many classrooms. Orchard Farms, as you may know, is not exclusive to the Alpine Estates development. It provides an education to the many children from the surrounding neighborhoods of Western Cranston. By allowing this zoning change, the doors open for other landowners who fall under the zoning regulation of A80. New schools will be necessary, new land will need to be purchased, or additions will need to be added onto existing school buildings. This past September, the newly built Garden City School welcomed its first students. It is a state-of-the-art school offering the children all the amenities which would allow
Excuse me,
students
through
to
the chair,
succeed.
Madam Chair, excuse me, ma'am. I don't mean to interrupt, but we're going on 3 minutes and it's not fair to the other people. who've spoken
Okay,
too.
I'll just.
Yeah, if you
I'll-
could wrap up if you don't
I will
mind.
wrap
Sorry,
it
I
up.
did say
Okay.
earlier 2 minutes for each person that's coming up and
I
just
will
to be
wrap it
a,
up.
just so everybody gets a chance to speak, those that are here this evening.
Here is a quote from the Cranston Superintendent, Janine Nadamasi, as told to NBC Channel 10 News on this past November 27th, 2023. Once the pandemic hit and our projects got off the ground, obviously the cost went up considerably. Building the new Gladstone Elementary, for example, was supposed to run the taxpayers $57 million. Instead, the new price tag of the ongoing project is now at $83 million. That was in 2023. What will be the cost and the impact on the city budget in 2025? Thank you for listening to our concerns.
Thank you. Anybody else here from the public? Thank you, sir. If you can, again, reminder, 2 minutes, name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Gary DeRamo. I live at 7 Lake Circle in Cranston, and I will keep it under the 2 minutes. Thank you for having the opportunity to talk. Basically, what I have to say is mostly deal with the traffic. It came to my attention that there are some statistics from the zone changes from the zoning commission. It showed that there were 382 zone changes. 36 of those changes were from 880 to 820. The majority of the 36 zone changes were on busy roads with multiple egress to the property. Just to mention a few: Plainfield Pike, Situate Avenue, Phoenix Avenue, Pippin Orchard Road, Burlingame Road. Now, Alpine Estates, as it was mentioned a moment ago, is there only one way in and one way out. There are over 400 houses that currently travel that road every day trying to get out on busy Situate Avenue. If you go out between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m., the traffic lines up on Alpine Estates Drive trying to get out on busy Situate Avenue. I've been there where I've pulled out of the development and the traffic started from Alpine Estates entrance, went all the way down to Comstock Parkway in front of the fire station, that light. It is already a major traffic issue. If this council passes the 880 to 820, it's going to set a precedent for future development. Not only is Sage going to develop, then there's going to be an issue with Caraway Drive. Then after that, there is close to 100 acres that abut Caraway and Sage. All this additional traffic is going to flow onto Alpine Estates Drive, making it an additional traffic issue. If the zone change sets a precedent, not only is traffic going to be a burden, the school systems, the sewer system, the waste treatment system, the snow, all city services are going to be taxed. And by the same reason, this zone change is possibly going to cause a tax increase for the budget needs. The result is a strain on city services and traffic. And to close, 3 years ago, I got up here and stated this, and I'll repeat myself. Mr. Casali has every right to develop his land. A no vote today from this council does not change or deny him from developing his land. He has every right to develop his land. However, he purchased it at 880. He's entitled to develop it at 880 without a zone change. I
Thank you,
encourage
sir.
this council to deny the claim for the zone change. 400 houses are against it and multiple other people as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hi, my name is Susan Bucci. I am at 67 Sage Drive. I'm going to cut out some of what was said. I don't want to be repetitive. But I did bring along with me copies of the school committee minutes, portions of the school committee minutes.
I make a motion to take the documents into a record.
Second.
Discussion? Here, through a roll. I think through the clerk, we have to accept it as a motion and everyone's, no discussion? Yes. Yeah, we can take a vote on accepting the document into the record, please.
Council Vice President Vargas,
Yes.
Councilman Wall,
Yes.
Councilman Ferry, Councilwoman Renzulli,
Yes.
Councilwoman Horayan. Councilman Donegan, Councilman Campiano,
Yes.
Council President Marino.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, go ahead, ma'am. Again, just a reminder, we can stick to the 2 minutes time frame. Everybody has gone just a little bit over, but thank you.
What I just passed out to you was a copy of a portion of the school committee minutes from October 23rd, 2023. And at that time, Superintendent Nada stated in the meeting that currently Orchard Farms and Oak Lawn Elementary are at maximum capacity, and Hope Highlands, currently a middle school, will need to be returned to an elementary school due to the development in Western Cranston. She states that a new middle school has to happen at some point, if not in the next 5 years, because we need the space in Western Cranston. The current estimated cost for that, she estimated at $130 million. Overcrowding schools without increasing budgetary needs may result in a drop in school achievement and quality, something I'm sure none of us wants. At the last zoning go-around, I had spoken with a city official who told me a zoning change can only be made if there's some benefit to the city or community and not just a financial benefit to the developer. The official also said this zoning would most certainly cause a domino effect because of the parcels of land it borders, and we've been talking about that consistently. And no one is fighting the owner's right to build the 4 homes. But why does this zoning change request continue when the same infrastructure problems exist and there's no plan in place to mitigate the issues that are sure to be detrimental to the area? Thank you. You're elected officials, and we just ask for your support.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Annette Osberg, and I have to apologize. I practiced for 3 minutes, and then I got here and you said 2. So can I just have a few? I cut a lot of stuff out, but I'll go really fast. So want to go through some quick history. As they said before, this property had come up for zoning before Mr. Casal bought it. So Casal has testified that he knows politics, and we all know he knows politics. We know he's well-connected. So what does he do? He asked Jason Pizzullo to change this lot in the comprehensive plan from A80 to A20. And as quoted in the comprehensive plan, several property owners have requested changes to their land use classification and zoning. And he will tell you the city council approved it. But guess what the comprehensive plan says? This is the wording. AP 35 lots 3-2. You guys are all on the city council. Do you know what that means? Because we're all the residents that live next door to it, and we didn't know that he had added in 2 of the parcels that you guys had already rejected. Now, let me ask you a question. How would you feel if your neighbor came in front of this board for a zoning change? This board said, nope, it's not approved. Then you find out 5 years later that it's in the comprehensive plan, and as an abutter, you were never notified. Is that right? Is this just me? Like, I don't know, it just makes me mad. Okay, keep going. Is this how this process is supposed to work? A lone city employee gets to change the zoning without community input. Are we supposed to believe that nobody in the planning department knew that this had previously come up and was denied by the city council? We know the comprehensive plan can be amended. So how come this has come up multiple times and it has never once been removed from the comprehensive plan? Peppermill came up, Caraway's coming up, and Sage is here now. But why wasn't the comprehensive plan amended? We know you can amend it. Multiple attorneys have said, well, why didn't it ever get amended? We don't know. Does one get to go behind the city council and sneak something in that they know the residents of the city and the city council does not want? It will not be mentioned tonight, but Pine Ridge is Alpine and it's A80. So they sneak that in. You never hear them say it, but we know, and it was developed like 20 years ago, each lot sold for $250,000, A80. So why doesn't Mr. Casal develop his 4 lots, get his $1.2 million, pay $500,000 in infrastructure, and make a lot of money and be happy and leave the residents happy too? In addition, this is not about 8 house lots. Next to Sage is Caraway, which is 9 acres and is in the comprehensive plan. And the developer has been at these meetings. Then next to Caraway is an adjacent parcel of 48 acres zoned A80. And Peppermint has come up before. So if everyone gets to switch, because we're going to be nice to Mr. Casal, it's not 31 houses, it's 120 25 houses that's going to get added because somebody had the great idea to add this to the comprehensive.
Ma'am, I just
plan.
want to remind you, you're over 3 minutes.
I know, that's fine. Last time we met with Casal, he threatened you guys. And keep in mind, he read from a written statement and he said, I will not sue, but he and his brother decided against a lawsuit, and we will exercise our option for a livestock farm, which we all know is a pig farm because it was told by many of us, we all heard it. And the council was floored that he bullied you the last time he came in. And it was a prepared statement. So thank you for giving me extra time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else here on the, oh, go right ahead, sir.
I'll be very brief since everyone's kind of, Joe Narcissi, 22 Caraway Drive. Couple quick things. The reason that we're back here is because they obtained that consent order that does say that they can reapply. And as they referenced directly paragraph 1, I will read from paragraph 3. Nothing else contained herein shall constrain the defendants, the city, from conducting their normal review for a petition for zone change, nor shall this consent order otherwise compel the defendants to approve a petition submitted by the plaintiff. Plainly said, you are not compelled by the judge's ruling to approve this. You are simply compelled to hear the case and conduct your normal review. Over the years that we've been fighting this in the past few weeks, you've heard plenty of reasons why this should not pass. And yet, through all these years, we haven't heard one compelling or even one reason why this should pass that would benefit the city in any way, shape, or form. We've only heard that it would be consistent with the comprehensive plan. Nobody's arguing that. It is consistent with the comprehensive plan. That does not mean that you have to approve it. There's plenty in the comprehensive plan, which once again, I won't go through as it's already been done to death, but calls for promoting orderly growth and development that recognizes the natural characteristics of the land, its suitability for use, and the availability of existing and proposed public and/or private services. And also to protect and stabilize existing neighborhoods by basing land use decisions on neighborhood needs and quality of life. All of these things that will be negatively impacted by approving this. And if we didn't think that the comprehensive plan was a little bit out of date, the analysis on page 131 simply states, and I quote, school enrollment is expected to decrease over the next several years. It was 20, 30 years ago. Well, that didn't happen. It's gone well the other way. I have 2 daughters in the schools here, and I can tell you the population has not decreased. The $130 million for a new school sounds like a lot. So in conclusion, the way I see it, though the request is in fact consistent with the comprehensive plan approved in 2012, here in 2024, several years after the expiration of that plan, the overwhelmingly negative impacts on the available resources and infrastructure of the community far outweigh any positive benefit that a rezoning of this property would bring. The city should not approve this rezoning request at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Is there anyone else here in the chamber? Good evening again. Name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Cheryl Carbone, and I live at 4 Time Drive. My property directly abuts the property in question on Sage Drive. I have lived in that beautiful neighborhood for 36 years. We raised 3 children there. They went to public schools. I have paid taxes for 36 years. I have a business in the city of Cranston. My husband has a business in the city of Cranston. His business is 73 years old. I think it's safe to say that we are well invested in the city of Cranston. I am a taxpayer and I am a constituent. So when Mr. Casale bought this property at an auction, I was not present and neither was my husband. He will tell you that we were there. We lost the bid. and I'm greedy, and I'm angry. So I'm here rallying the neighbors against him. That is not true. I don't believe that Mr. Casali should not have what he's requesting. I do believe that Mr. Casali needs to be better invested in the city of Cranston. I mean, he owns a piece of property now, and yes, he's paid taxes, but he lives in hope. He has 4 children. They went to private schools. He has a business in Johnston. So what is the benefit for him to develop this property other than to make money? We all want to make money. We all want to pay our taxes and not be additionally taxed for the fallout if in fact we do promote this petition and we place stresses on all of the infrastructure and so forth. Now, Mr. Casali will tell you that I put sprinklers on his property and I used his property for 20 years, and that is not true. I did put my fire pit on his property for a good 10 years. I maintained his property. There were a lot of kids hanging out there lighting fires, and I took care of that. I will tell you that he's a friend of the family, and I see him many times at holidays and functions. We shake hands and we call each other friend. He can be a friend. He can be a neighbor. I just don't understand why this keeps getting ugly. This is a business transaction. It's a business decision. I should have never been called on my cell phone and asked to meet in the cul-de-sac and sign a document and accept hush money so that I never come here and talk again. I shouldn't be harassed by my neighbor. And I shouldn't have been threatened that I'll teach you a lesson if you don't stay away from the meetings. Well, I'm only here to speak about the fallout that's going to happen in my pocketbook. And the children, all these young parents, they have beautiful children playing in the cul-de-sac, and they can walk to school, and they should have the same opportunities I had. I don't understand why this has to be a fight. This should be orderly. Doesn't the comprehensive plan say orderly transition for the benefit?
Ma'am,
of
just
the
a reminder, you've gone a little bit over 3 minutes. If you
I
can
am
mind
done.
wrapping it up, that would be great.
Thank you for your time. I also want to refer to the word havoc. If this is put forward, there will be havoc. I respectfully request that you deny this petition, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone? I just want to give everyone a chance to speak, please. No, sorry, thank you. Go ahead.
My name is
Yeah.
Trisha Gilmore. I live at Peppermill Lane in Cranston. My husband is here as well. I just wanted to make a couple of quick points. A few things. So just to understand, so the comprehensive plan was updated in 2010. That's what is online right now. I've participated in the one workshop that was held to help revise the plan, one workshop, and that was it so far, so we'll see. People do reference that there was a 2012 comprehensive plan. However, my question would be, was that an actual update? I don't see the document revised to reflect 2012, and I actually see, when you look at the land use map that was attached to the 2010 version, it has those sage parcels listed as A80. However, when you look at the document attached, it now says, the title of the document actually says 2012 Proposed Amendment. I struggle to find any paper trail where that was actually put into place and that it is valid and needed to be followed. So that's a question I pose. I also want you to understand that in Exhibit A attached to the comprehensive plan, there are 35 parcels that are listed as possibly being designated or proposed change from A80 to A20. That's 35 parcels having the opportunity to build 4 times the number of houses from a plan that is 14 years old, as you've heard many times, but we know many things change. Hopefully in this revised comprehensive plan, we'll be able to work with the Planning Commission to come up with something that actually makes sense relative to where we stand. We also have this person who has threatened people, and we have a planning director that does seem very, very determined to help push this through. So I would just respectfully ask that you listen to the residents and you deny this change. It doesn't impact any of the current residents or the city. And in fact, it will be a ripple effect. We've seen other developers attending these hearings. We've come before you many times for Peppermill Lane. It's a never-ending saga that we as residents have to keep a vigilant watch, because if we don't, things try to sneak past in the dark of night. So we're asking you to look out for your constituents and do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else from the chamber that hasn't spoken yet that'd like to come and speak on docketed items?
Greg Silva, 16 Peppermill Lane. I don't have a lot of additional stuff to say. I mean, I think everyone's articulated it pretty well. I think maybe a couple points. One is, there is one point of ingress and egress, and it's not like a wide bunch of lanes. The whole neighborhood comes in and out of one place, but it's one lane and one lane with a median in the middle. So it's not just, it's a pain in the butt to get out of work and to get, somewhere in the morning. If we needed emergency services, they have to wait for all that too. You can't just drive over through the median. There's a big sign there and everything else. So it's a safety concern as well. Also, I don't think anyone's really spoke about the water situation. The water table is very high. It's a hilly neighborhood. You don't need to be an environmental engineer to understand that water, like other things, flows downhill. And at the end of the day, the more you pave to take the trees away, it causes potential peril for the neighbors, for the other houses in the area. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else in the chamber that has not spoken yet? Or just, okay. We're going to move forward to Zoom. Tom, is there anyone online who wishes to speak on these docketed items only?
Yes, Kevin Richard.
Good evening, Kevin. Can you please just state your full name and your address for the record, sir?
Sure. Thank you, Madam President. My name is Kevin Richard, 14 Lee Circle.
Kevin, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Again,
Yes.
just a friendly reminder, just as I mentioned to everyone that's here in person, if you can restrict your comments to about 2 minutes or so. Just keep
Absolutely.
it
I'd be
short.
very,
Thank you.
very brief, just to say I concur with many of my fellow residents and neighbors. One of the things that's less than anecdotal about the traffic that's already been stated, just being a parent that has children that goes to school, increasingly we've been getting text messages in the morning about bus delays. So it's not just about us getting to work, it's actually about our children attending school and getting to school on time. And those texts are coming more and more frequently in the mornings. And we've all experienced the difficulty getting onto Situate Ave. I'd really like to stress the impact that the flooding, this committee, this heard a lot of our arguments before about the flooding that was already happening in the city of Cranston, and I didn't really hear any resolutions. In fact, I heard more questions than answers. And my concern is what happens if this is developed. I believe that this isn't isolated, that if you allow this for one contractor, that the floodgates are open, literally and figuratively, this is going to happen. That other people are very much paying attention to this hearing. So I would ask the committee to vote no on this, not only for this unique situation that we're talking about 8 houses. I think we can all say with some certainty that this is probably going to go far beyond 8 houses. Other people are definitely paying attention to this, and I think this will be an ongoing issue. So I would ask the committee to vote no on this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Christy Narcisi.
Hi, good evening. My name is Christy Narcisi. I reside at 22 Caraway Drive in Cranston. I'm here today, and I've been here before at many of the meetings to echo what my neighbors have said and express my concerns and ask for your support in not changing the zoning and keeping Sage Drive zoned at A80. Again, I'll be brief but clear. I'm not fighting his right for growth. I understand he has 4 houses, and that's not what I'm debating. I'm asking that the land in the Alpine and Western Cranston area zoned A80 remains A80. As a resident here, I can speak directly to the neighborhood. Mr. Casali and his attorneys like to reference this comprehensive plan, but again, we have to remind ourselves that this was written for a 2010 Cranston and a 2010 Alpine. It's antiquated and outdated and not consistent with the growth of Alpine that exists today. It's the same document that they use for their defense that states that growth in Cranston needs to be orderly and consistent with the purpose of the plan. So I ask you, what is the purpose of his rezoning? How does it benefit Cranston at large? That's what I ask over and over again, and I come up with the same answer. It doesn't. It stresses our existing systems and infrastructure, and it only benefits one man, or landowners who want to rezone for that matter, financially at the detriment of the existing neighbors and Cranstonians who are residents here today. My neighbors have expressed a multitude of concerns that I echo: topography of the land with the water issues, safety concerns, community resources, traffic because there's 400 homes with one egress in and out. But most importantly and personally to me is the stress it puts on the schools. I'm a mom with children in both the elementary and the middle school here in Cranston. My youngest is at Orchard Farms in the overcrowded school with over 460 students. She's considered one of the lucky ones because her grade level only has 3 classes. Some of her peers have 4. And what happens with the 4? The teachers have to follow them because it was not designed to contain and take care of that capacity. My oldest at Hope Highlands, I'm told that school's at max. So how are we looking out for the future of Cranston when you add these additional homes? Where do these kids go? Council, I ask you to be concerned on how overcrowded schools impact children, including my children, and their education. We can't build new schools. We've already expressed that these are very expensive endeavors. And again, how does it benefit Cranston? It doesn't. The Cranston Comp Plan, as previously stated, predicted that school enrollment would decrease. And again, that's another example of how outdated this guide is. So again, I ask you to heed my concerns and the concerns of my fellow neighbors. Do not vote to allow rezoning to go through. Let him build his homes at the A80 designation instead of having the extra lots that can bring the extra problems. And please consider how this directly and negatively impacts my neighbors, myself, and particularly my children, the reason I sit and speak at these meetings. Thank you.
Account name Frank.
Good evening, sir. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, can you hear me?
And we can hear you. Yes, sir. Name and address for the record, please.
Frank Gibbons, 50 Sage Drive, Cranston. I'd like to state that I'm opposed to the rezoning. I was also witness to and present during the predatory acts of Mr. Casali when he threatened the neighbors multiple times during the process. The last time he tried to get this rezoned, I certainly don't think that should be rewarded. And I want to thank all the neighbors that have come and spoken. This has been a long battle for them going over many years, my generation, the generation before that. And I would ask the council that instead of continuing year after year, wasting the council and the taxpayers and the neighbors' time, that maybe we could have a council member put forth a motion to permanently keep the zoning at 880 so we don't have to keep wasting both the council's time and the neighbors' time. And I think out of anything, I think the takeaway from this tonight, besides that, how Mr. Casali has conducted his business, is that the constituents of Cranston and the residents absolutely do not want this rezoning to be passed. Please keep that in mind, and I thank you so much for being there, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
John Mullen.
Good evening, John Marlin, 41 Caraway Drive, Cranston. I am not going to say too much other than that I wholeheartedly agree with what my neighbors have said tonight. I am opposed to this proposed A80 to A20 zoning change. We pump out so much water at our house. We're on Caraway. It is absolutely insane sometimes. So just in terms of the negative impact this zoning change could have on the greater good of the neighborhood, I would ask you to please vote this down tonight. Thank you.
Now named Teresa.
Good evening, Teresa. I think you're still on mute.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Hi, my name is Teresa Reale, 28 Caraway Drive. I'm just on here tonight to say I'm opposed to this zone change. Thank you for your time.
Madam Chairman, I'm not seeing anyone new at this time.
All right. Thank you. Right. That being said, we had public comment here in the chamber, public comment on Zoom. Be closing public comment at this time.
Okay. The applicant is John Casali. John Casali is a resident of the city of Cranston and owns over 10 properties in the city.
Thank you. All right, now the public hearing Public comment is closed. We're moving on to the new matters before the committee. That is ordinance 4-24-01, ordinance amendment of chapter 17 of the Code of the City of Cranston, 2005, entitled Zoning, Change of Zone 0 Sage Drive, petition filed by property owner John Casali III. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion. Go right
I
ahead,
would like to
Councilwoman.
recuse myself from this.
Okay. I believe if you have to recuse yourself, you just have to let the clerk know. Councilmember Donegan?
Thank you, Council Vice President. First of all, I want to thank people for coming. I know I've communicated with some of you, and I know I'm ultimately probably not going to agree with you on this decision, but I do appreciate your involvement, and I think it's important that we see people taking an active role in city government. So thank you, despite maybe a disagreement on this. I appreciate all of you and your role as community members. I don't know the petitioner at all. I am thinking and looking at this, the benefit that I see, I think that the residents do make some rather convincing arguments. The angle that I'm looking at it is that by increasing the amount of housing supply that we have, it will, and some of you might be surprised that I'm going to use this term, but that it'll trickle down to benefit others. And if anyone knows me, that's not a theory that I necessarily always agree with. But by adding those additional units, or not units, but homes, it will free up stock elsewhere so people can move up, allowing more, maybe closer to the median priced home here in Cranston. And that's something that's already, with our current housing stock, is already not attainable for most people in the city of Cranston. We've got 50% of renters who are cost burdened, 30% of owners who are cost burdened. And is building 4 additional lots above what they can currently do under zoning going to solve the housing crisis in Cranston? No. Will it make maybe a small positive impact towards it? Yeah, I think so, minorly. And for that reason, I'm in support.
Thank you, Council Donegan. I do want to note that I did receive a letter today from the mayor, and I would like to add it into the record if I will. So if I can believe I may be required to have a motion to enter this letter in the docket.
Motion to accept that letter into.
Second.
Thank you through the clerk. I'm going to hand the letter over to you, but I also have it in an email that I can forward. I see the administration here. I'd like to hear from the administration, and then also, sorry.
Discussion.
There's a motion is there a second? Sorry, thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, through the clerk, can you please take a roll call on entering this item into the docket?
Council Vice President Vargas?
Yes.
Councilman Wall?
Yes.
Councilman Ferry?
Yes.
Councilwoman Renzulli?
Yes.
Councilman Donegan? Councilman Campiano?
Yes.
Council President Marino?
Yes.
I'm going to pass it around as well. Thank you. I see the director here is here on behalf of the administration. I do have a question as well for our legal counsel, but the floor is yours, and then I'll ask our city solicitor a few other questions.
Thank you. I know you've accepted into the record, but I'd like the opportunity, please, to read it aloud for the benefit of the council people that have here that may have not seen that. So what is it? It's a letter addressed from Mayor Hopkins to Chair Vargas concerning the change of zone on Sage Drive. And it reads, "Dear Councilwoman Vargas," this is again from the mayor. "I am writing to you and members of the Ordinance Committee and City Council to express my concern and opposition to ordinance number 42401 regarding the change of zone petition filed by the property owner for the certain property off Sage Drive. This matter has been considered several times over the past few years, and most recently was the subject of a lengthy discussion at the Planning Commission meeting on May 7th, 2024. As you know, as a result of considerable discussion, consideration, objections raised by area residents, the Planning Commission forwarded the matter to your committee without any specific recommendation. I will leave it to your legal counsel to advise if that action fulfills their responsibility under Section 1305 of the City Charter entitled Zoning and Rhode Island General Law 452452 entitled Adoption Review by Planning Board or Commission for the Planning Commission to express its opinion on amendments to the zoning map. Nonetheless, my concerns relate to whether the rezoning of Sage Drive parcel meets the general purposes of zoning ordinances found in Rhode Island General Law 452430. Among the purposes that need to be satisfied are, quote, providing for orderly growth and development that recognizes A3V, the availability and capacity of existing and planned public and or private services and facilities. Also A7, providing for the protection of public investment in transportation, water, stormwater, management systems, sewer treatment and disposal, waste, solid waste treatment and disposal, schools, recreation, public facilities, open space, and other public requirements. The current capacity of the Orchard Farms Elementary School should be reviewed and the impact of the zone change clearly understood. In addition, it is my understanding that the Rhode Island State Traffic Commission is reviewing the intersection of Alpine Estates Drive and Situate Avenue to determine if there should be a traffic signal there. The impact of additional traffic entering and leaving the plat should be considered. The property owner does have the ability to develop the parcel under the existing 2-acre zoning designation. Accordingly, I would urge the Ordinance Committee to recommend denial of ordinance number 42401 to the full City Council. I would request that the correspondence be accepted and placed in the record as you have done. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Director. At this point, I do have a question for the solicitors. Attorney Radecki, I did have a question in terms of just, there was a letter that was also received by the, sorry, give me 1 second. I'm just trying to see if I find it. There's a letter that we also received from the, I think it's the attorney, just trying to write down. I think it was the residence attorney on here, Peter Squirts, am I pronouncing that correctly? Thank you. And then we have the letter as well that was provided to us. We heard the testimony of the legal counsel as well, Mr. Catala's side as well. And then we have the letter from the mayor that was obviously just entered into the record. It is also noted on there that he would kind of defer to our legal counsel. Just trying to understand, it seems like with litigation and everything else that's going on in this case, what is the legal opinion here of yours in terms of the council this evening, in terms of this actual ordinance coming before us, going before the planning, coming before us, and initially coming for a vote?
Well, my impression of this is that I think it's very important before this committee deliberates, and obviously before the full council considers the application, that the committee and the council have the proper legal framework before it deliberates and it analyzes whether or not to grant this petition. And the reason I say that is because this doesn't seem to be your run-of-the-mill zone change, which we've had over the years. There are procedural issues here. There are substantive factors here. There is the advent of new legislation, which was recently enacted up at the State House. All of these factors are essentially, they're on a collision course. And I think it's very important that the again, that the committee and the council have, again, a proper legal background and a thorough understanding of all of the statutes, laws, case law, everything that's at play here, because you want to get this right. Obviously, we've been to court once. We really don't want to go back again for obvious reasons. But there is a Superior Court action out there, essentially waiting on the sidelines to see what we're going to do with this latest application. So the stakes are pretty high, and you do want to get it right, as I said. I would strongly recommend that the committee not vote on this tonight, rather take it under advisement. I would then strongly suggest, and incidentally, this is in concert with Attorney Angel and I believe Solicitor Malay, that we then schedule at the convenience of the committee a special ordinance committee meeting to be held in executive session. We all have our legal positions here and our legal thoughts as to what's at stake, what's in play, how it should proceed, but it's not appropriate to air this out in a public forum. So I would strongly recommend that the committee do that, but it's obviously in your discretion.
Thank you. Council President Marino.
Relative to this, a few things I want to say. One is there was something mentioned tonight about the council permanently banning this because it's come before the council that predated our time of all of us even being on council. Legally, we cannot do that. No legislative body can do that. If Solicitor Videcchia, if you can just mention that as well.
I'm not sure I completely understand, Madam President.
If we, it was mentioned this evening that an option for the council is to have a quote permanent ban on limiting this property to only as it designated and never allowing the applicant, whoever that person may be, this owner or subsequent owners, to ever come before the city and propose to change the zoning. You can't legally
Yeah,
do that.
that would violate quite a few legal principles, not the least of which, when you consider this against the backdrop of the Superior Court action, that would not be an option in any event, just for that reason alone. This is a new application. It has to be decided on its merits, this application here. In terms of making this forward-looking for the next 100 years and putting some type of restriction, deed restriction, as it were, on the property, in my opinion, would not be upheld and would be illegal.
And I do have some questions relative to the subdivision aspect that was brought up this evening relative to whether or not it's required that it go through planning before it comes before the council, so that the council would have specifics relative to exactly how many, homes were being proposed should the zone change occur. So I have questions along those lines, and I'll table that for a minute. And the other thing that I thought was important to mention tonight is that, I thank Council Vice President Vargas for mentioning that this evening to the solicitor. I'm sure we're not the only ones. I'm sure others are probably thinking it too, is that given the change in circumstances in terms of all the legal questions that are now being presented relative to this ordinance, that it makes sense for us to have the advice from the city solicitor. I appreciate the letter from the mayor so that we know where the mayor's stands on that. One issue I take with the letter is when it says your legal counsel, it's our legal counsel, let's be clear. The charter provides the city solicitor as hired by the mayor, and the council just approves that department head after inauguration, like every other department head gets proposed. So the city solicitor for the city, which is the mayor's lawyer as well, is the one that has the duty to advise this council as to the legal matters and solely with respect to pending litigation matters that are against the city and the council. It is the job of the city solicitor to advise the council, which we have had occur with this matter and others where we go into executive session, which is nothing out of the ordinary. That's what's legally required. And we are obligated by law when we have executive sessions to take the advice as given to us by legal counsel so that we are informed, but it's ultimately up to the lawyers of the city and the lawyers hired by the city to make those legal determinations and not this council. That's all that I have this evening, but I think that it's prudent for us as a body to have advice from the solicitor relative to this legal issue. And I would go one step further, and with all the different nuances, I would prefer to have an actual memo, which has occurred in the past, a legal memorandum provided to the council confidentially relative to the various issues to make sure that they're all covered for us. Thanks.
Thank you. In hearing the legal counsel's kind of response to the question that I had, pretty much just noting, right, Superior Court's pretty much in the sidelines at this point. The stakes are actually high, and his recommendation is to really have an executive session as well. I would actually, at this point, that being said, and I do want to value the time that the residents have put into this that are here with us this evening as well, hearing both sides as well on Mr. Cataldo's side. But I think that in doing what's best right now for the city is that we should really have an executive session on this and get a little more of the legal advice and any other potential even additional questions that perhaps we may not all fully have, even some that are not here. So I will entertain a motion. Councilwoman Benzuli, I'm going to let you speak. I'm just going to finish up. I am going to entertain a motion to continue this. But before I do, to the next month, Councilwoman Benzuli, you're in the committee. Go right ahead and say a few words, but I will get back to suggestion to entertain this and
Thank
have
you,
this
Council
continue
Vice
for next
President.
month.
I just wanted to speak on the topic at hand before we move, and then I can't talk anymore. I just wanted to ask the solicitor a question. Attorney Badecchio, would we need to go into executive session purely because of the litigation that this is a part of? Or if that litigation did not exist, would we be able to discuss this in open session as we have in other? I'm just trying to make sure that the residents get the same information, the information they're allowed to get, and we do this in a transparent way so that everyone understands why we have to go into executive session.
Well, I can think there's at least two reasons. One is the one you just mentioned, that this is part and parcel. It's not a direct, it's not the Superior Court case per se, but it's directly related to it. That's the first reason, because that litigation, as I said, is out there on the sidelines. And what happens there depends on what happens here. So clearly, this concerns litigation. That's number one. But number two, had that not been a factor, had there not been something already pending in Superior Court, I would still highly recommend that this be done in executive session, because open meetings also says it doesn't have to be litigation. It could be potential litigation. And there is clearly going to be, I don't see how anyone could say there isn't potential litigation, because whichever way that this committee and the council ends up ruling, there's a good chance that appeals are going to be taken and the city's going to be right in the middle of it. So there's two solid grounds for holding an executive session.
Thank you, Attorney. I also, I am just curious, and I don't know if you can really directly answer this question, but as of recently and just in general, we know that attorneys interpret the law differently. And it's been established we need to, we seek legal advice. We're supposed to follow it, whether we're in executive session or open session. If there is not one consensus, what happens then? That's happened recently where city attorneys and our council attorney have disagreed, and obviously we can only make one choice and some of us make different choices. But are we bound by the advice that's received by a city solicitor in executive session or not?
When you say bound, all I can tell you is that the Cranston City Charter, like most of the charters in the state, and I came from Johnston, I was the solicitor at one time for the town of Johnston, and the same issue came up. And the Rhode Island Supreme Court, in interpreting the Johnston Charter, which, by the way, the language there is very similar, if not identical, to the Cranston Charter, where it states in the charter that the solicitor is the lawyer for all the boards, agencies, and departments of the city, all of them, and that includes the council. Now, obviously, the council has Mr. Angel, who's doing a fantastic job. But all I can tell you is what the charter says. Ultimately, that's, I believe, how the court would see it, because the court has already ruled on this. Now, to answer your other question, I don't know if I can answer that. If you get differing opinions, you're gonna have to decide as a committee which you want to follow. That's all I can say. But I can say this, as I said, the city solicitor sits on top. That's the clear language of the charter.
Thank you, Solicitor. Madam President, may I ask the planning director a question relative to it's nothing improper that needs to be in an executive session, but if he's still here. And he might not be here anymore. Is Jason still here? Can I do that?
Is it really
It's obviously.
this matter?
Yeah,
Okay. Can we do it really right to the point, if you don't mind?
we can, but if I don't get the answer, then I can't
Yep.
go on in my head as to what I'm thinking. Director, I'm just wondering, in regard to an implementation schedule that is part of comprehensive plans. Was there an implementation schedule that included needing to change this over? Is that the 18 months that everyone keeps talking about, or is that a state mandated implementation schedule? And is the city of Cranston supposed to have, I see a chart that has an implementation schedule. I just can't find this one, and it might be me.
So that was.
If I may, I'm sorry to interrupt. Councilwoman, with all due respect, that answer, depending on what it is, could have an effect on the city's legal position here. And I don't know that it's appropriate to do this in open session. I think this should be discussed in executive session.
At the advice of a solicitor, I will take that into executive session. Madam Vice President, could we request certain people be at our executive session? How
Actually,
does
that's
that
good.
work?
That's a good question. Can we have are we able to call the director to be part of the executive session?
Yes, if the committee feels it's necessary, absolutely. And it goes without saying, the director would know that anything discussed in executive session has to remain confidential, but sure.
All right, that being said, as I mismentioned earlier, I will be entertaining a motion to continue this to the next ordinance committee meeting. However, I would like to have an executive session that evening, or otherwise, I think, do we have to have the executive session the same day as the ordinance committee through the clerk or through the legal counsel? I'm just trying to figure out in terms of scheduling.
You don't
Can it
have
be at
to.
any other?
You don't
date?
have to. It depends on whatever's convenient for the committee. I will say this, though. I don't think it's going to suffice to schedule if you're going to do it on the same night. If you're going to do it 15 minutes before, I don't believe that's going to be enough time.
Okay.
This is a pretty involved, complex.
Okay.
issue here.
Council President.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I don't think it was discussed how much time the city solicitor is gonna need to address
or
all
draft
the concerns too. That's the other issue, and draft the memo for us.
Assuming, and I'm just assuming, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but if we were going to the next ordinance meeting, that's plenty of time for us, speaking for myself, and I think I can safely speak on behalf of the other attorneys. We will definitely be ready. Obviously, if you're going to do this next week, that might be a little too close, but depending on what you were thinking, when you were thinking of scheduling it, we'll be ready.
So the next ordinance committee meeting is scheduled for the June 13th. Would that be sufficient time? Otherwise, if this will require an executive session, that's going to take a little longer, as you had mentioned, because we do have Public Works also that same evening.
Right.
Would it make sense to do it, even if it's, and I'll let the council president also chime in, even if it's an hour prior to a city council committee
I
meeting?
mean, June 13th is plenty of time as far as we're concerned. I would recommend, though, if you can't do it, I would say an hour is probably the cutoff time. If it's going to be shorter than that, it should have its own night, because I really think we're going to need all of that. And I don't know everyone's schedule. I don't know if people can be here for 5 o'clock. That's for you to discuss.
Say something. Councilwoman Rizzoli.
Thank you, Council Vice President. I'm just wondering if the solicitor or the Council Vice President knows if, are we under any kind of time constraints in making a decision on this based on when it was submitted to us by the petitioner?
The consent decree mentioned 90 days. But I'm certain that a judge would be understanding, provided that we're proceeding as fast as we can, and I think would be very understanding that we want to get it right. But apart from that, there are no time limitations. This isn't a zoning variance. This is they're asking for a legislative act, and there really is no timetable on that. It says here the litigation is stayed for a period of 3 months, and that's from April 16th. So we're looking at May, June, July. So I think we should be okay.
We should have it by then. We need to have it done by July 16th.
Looks like it's dated, and the lawyers can correct me if I'm wrong. It was entered by the clerk on April 16th, 2024. Is that right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Fair.
I would like to propose that we do it on June 6th, a week before the ordinance meeting, which is 3 weeks from today, which gives them plenty of time to prepare, and we have a week between the executive session and the ordinance committee meeting, instead of it being rushed where we're trying to do it an hour before.
Is there, Council President, how do you feel of doing it an hour before the next city council meeting in June? Is that too far out?
I think,
It might be too far out to provide us with information.
yeah, you mean for the end of the month, the full council meeting? Yeah, I think that's a stretch. I'd rather have it done sooner, because they're saying they only need till June. But I'm just throwing this out there. I mean, maybe we should have a withdrawal of the motion to approve, and then continue this to the next June ordinance committee meeting. And then in the interim, with discussions with the clerk and legal counsel, can figure out the exact date for the executive session. That's probably the best thing to do.
Okay, I think that's makes sense. Who had entertained that motion? to continue?
Withdraw the motion to approve.
Thank you.
I make a motion to continue to the next ordinance committee meeting.
Second?
Any discussion? Seeing none, through the clerk, can you please take the roll?
Council Vice President Vargas.
Yes.
Councilman Wall.
Yes.
Councilman Ferry.
Yes.
Councilwoman Renzulli.
Yes.
Councilman Donegan.
Yes.
Councilman Campiano.
Yes.
Council President Marino.
Yes.
All right, thank you. That concludes the agenda for this evening. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor, say, sorry, is there a second? Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, ayes have it.